You are listening to the Mark Guzman Podcast Experience. Elementary school can be a scary time, not just for kids who are going to school for the first time, but for parents as well, who worry about how their child will hold up on their own in school. What makes the process easier is having access to the best schools with the best teachers who know how to put your child in the best position to succeed in the long run. My guest today is Denise Pinney, principal of Collins Elementary in Pinole, as we continue our series on local Bay Area schools. Enjoy. All right, so let's get started. So my guest today is Denise Pinney.
That's
is that correct? Principal of Collins Elementary School here in Pinole. So
That's
welcome
right.
to the podcast, and thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be here. Thanks.
So let's get started. And how long have you been the principal for Collins?
So this is my third year here. Before this, I started my career teaching as a second career, and I taught in the district. Montalvan, Grant Elementary. I was a teacher coach, and then decided that I wanted to affect change bigger. And so I became an assistant principal outside the district for a couple of years and then came back. So I was at Terra Hills for 5 years. And then I went to special ed for a couple of years and needed to come back to the joy of families and communities and came back to Collins.
What district did you go outside of?
I went to Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Yes, I live in Martinez, so it was a reverse commute, and I was a vice principal, so at that time I was cutting my teeth with administration, and this district didn't have that step at that time. We do now, which is great, but I really felt like to grow my practice, I needed to have sort of a master person to help guide me through the administrative process.
So what made you decide to get into teaching and follow the career of education?
I used to play library when I was a little kid. So every book in our home had a library card, and my dolls would check out books.
You would make your parents check out books too?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was really, yeah, absolutely. So I knew I always wanted to do something. I loved school when I was younger, always in trouble because I talked too much, which also I know that I could be a good teacher because I talk too much. But I always wanted to do something. And when my daughter was in school, I decided to go back to school myself. And she was at Valhalla in Pleasant Hill. And I was able to work with her teachers in a intern deal, and just really knew that that's what I wanted to do. I just knew. There's nothing revolutionary about that.
Now, have you always worked with elementary age students?
For the most part, except in special education. I was the administrator over mental health services, and I was itinerant. I traveled to all of the schools, high school, middle school, and elementary, and worked with some of their programs that support some of the students struggling with the social emotional behaviors, mental health issues.
Okay. So who's Margaret Collins?
That's a really good question. So I don't know if your listeners know that Pinole has a historical society, but in their newsletter from winter 2011, there's a whole write-up about the Collins family. So John and Julia Collins in like the 1880s were these, pioneer people. They had saloons. And so this, I think because of the shipping, the gold and the sort of the area around the waterways, this was a place where people landed. And they, the Collins family grew up. I think they had 11 children, 9 at one point, and then Dad died and Mom remarried the brother, and Margaret was the oldest. And once she became of age, she became a teacher, a principal. She was the superintendent of what was called Pinole Hercules School Number 1, and then, principal of Pinole Hercules School Number 1, and then became superintendent of Pinole Hercules School Number 2, which is Collins. And we actually have a bell outside the front of the school that commemorates it being one of the original schools or school sites. I'm sure they've rebuilt it since then. And at some point, that was also the district office. And she was given the honor of having the school named after her because of her longevity in the neighborhood and what she did for the school.
That's a great story.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. We have the Pinole Historical Society. The mayor comes out and does stuff. We have a writing contest every year, and the mayor comes out and takes pictures. And so we try to stay really connected.
Very neat. So one of the questions I get a lot as a property manager and realtor is, what are the schools like? And so it's always hard for me to answer that question specifically because, schools change, neighborhoods are different, cities are different, and legally we have to be careful with certain things we say when we're licensed. So one of the things I'm doing here on the podcast is inviting principals like you to come on and basically just brag about your school. So I know there's been a lot of great feedback from Collins Elementary parents where their students go there.
Well, that's good news.
Yeah. So let's talk about the actual academics. Where does the school rank amongst Bay Area schools right now?
So I think I'm not going to lie. I'm going to be very transparent that we're not at the bottom, but we're certainly not at the top. We are in the middle, and we have data, but it is not current because it sort of rolls over from the previous year, and it takes a while for like the SBAC, which is the state testing that the students do from grades 3 to 6. It takes a while for that to sort of disaggregate and come onto the sites. We are progressing. We're doing well. We're getting better. And part of the charge that I was given when I came was to really affect change. And as a team, it's uncomfortable conversations many times about what are we doing for our struggling students? What are we doing for our students that need to be challenged more? So we are working together as a team. Again, this is my third year here, and we're starting to see much more progress than we had in the past. So I'm really proud of the work that we've done. We're reclassifying more students, our second language learners. We're using the latest technology. We have tablets in every classroom. We do a lot of online homework.
Tablets in every classroom now?
Tablets in every student has a tablet. It's called a one-to-one initiative. And so each classroom has a place to plug them in, so they recharge every night, or they can take them home. So with permission slips, the kids actually take them home and do mostly 3rd through 6th grade. But every class, every teacher, every student has screen time every day. And whether it's for a few minutes, whether it's for research, playing games. There's a lot. Khan Academy is a math game. We do what's called IXL. We also are piloting a program this year in another math program to sort of help students fill in the gaps in the holes where they're missing. We also do what's called Accelerated Reader, where every book in the library and online you can find out what the level of the book it is that you're reading. And then you take a test on that to see what your comprehension is. And so based on all of that, we use the data coming back from those online assessments, and then we sort of, I don't want to say we teach to that, but that's how we know where our gaps are, and we can fill those holes in.
Yeah, it's all data. I mean, you have to know the data in order to make the correct decisions.
Absolutely, absolutely. And every child is different. But I think if you ask teachers a reteach moment, if I've messed up something, or if I didn't read it correctly, or if I went over too quickly, that's going to be a hole for many kids. And so a reteach moment is what we really look for when we're trying to fill in those gaps.
And I guess having tablets makes it a lot easier for the students to learn because everyone learns a little bit different. There's people who can read text and understand it. Others need something more visual,
right,
and other people need more hands-on.
That's right.
And I guess the tablet can somewhat, in a way, knock out all three.
Pretty much. I think it's even greater than that. We're in the 21st century, and when these kids get a career, they're going to be sitting here and playing with what you're
There's
what
2-year-olds
right
playing
now.
with tablets
Absolutely.
right now.
And if I have a question, I call the 6th grade and they send down one of the students and they help me with Google. It's true because they really can do it so much more quickly, effectively, and accurately than, this old lady sitting here doing this. So there's a piece of that where, the listening to the text, interacting with the text, being able to highlight and move text around, and that is definitely important. But I think just learning for the future is what we're guiding to. I think in the future, what we're hoping is that tablets become the new textbooks, and kids get those books off their backpacks, out of their backpacks and off their backs, and so that they can access whatever they need right there. The research piece, being able to, and social media, being savvy. In the district, we have a day of coding, so even my kindergartners are doing some coding, and trying to get the girls involved in STEM because it's very accessible on a tablet. So
how does coding for a kindergartner work?
It's really cool. It's kind of like doing patterns. It really is if then, right? And they kind of take the paper and they manipulate it, and they say, well, if you're doing this, then you put this here, and if you're doing that, and I've got a bulletin board up right now in the front office with kindergarten coding.
That's amazing.
It is amazing. It is, but our world is changing so rapidly that we have to, or we will fail. We have to keep them on the cutting edge.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It is really good. Part of going back to why my principal and why did I want to be a teacher is the joy of kid learning is just there's nothing that compares to that. A child getting in and you see the twinkle in their eye and they come to you with something they've done and they show it, and it's going to go in their refrigerator. It's a pretty cool feeling.
I bet it's also amazing to see someone who cannot comprehend a problem at the very beginning and then figure out how to get to the end goal and then go back and understand how to complete it. Maybe even better to see them than teach it to someone else.
Absolutely. And we do that. So another bragging point is and this is not just Collins, this is the district is really working on student-led teaching, student-led conferencing, less teacher talk, more student talk. So turn to your buddy and tell them what you just heard. Turn to your buddy and tell them what you know. Share out. And so that the kids are able to express what they know and what they think about it and give them their own voice. And just what you said, I got it. Let me tell you how I got it. And kid to kid, it's much easier for those kids to understand each other versus, the teacher, Charlie Brown's teacher in the background going, wah, 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 right?
Yeah.
So I pride myself on the fact that I go into the classroom and there's a lot of noise, but it's the noise of learning. It's controlled chaos. It's them up and moving around and really expressing what they know through hands-on, through teaching each other, through helping each other.
Now, it seems like in today's day and age, there's starting to be a shift of going away from teaching children things that they have to memorize to teaching them how to figure out problems on their own.
Right.
So how does that look at Collins?
So you just explained Common Core. So the Common Core standards really moved away from rote learning. And it would be cool to know the dates of the Civil War, absolutely. But I think what's most important is to give them the tools so that they can go and search and research it themselves and define the learning themselves. And so Common Core is really about the verbs of learning: discover, analyze, create. And so because of that, we're giving students an opportunity to really dive into their interest-based learning themselves. So not everybody loves dinosaurs, but if you get a kid who loves dinosaurs, they are going to be able to read whatever level book. They're going to be able to pronounce and spell pterodactyl, which I cannot, right? And they're going to be able to tell you everything about the carnivores or the herbivores because they're interested in it. And so giving kids an opportunity to learn how to learn around what they're interested in learning. Yes, absolutely. Do we have to have math facts? You betcha. Do we have to have, writing conventions? Absolutely. But giving them the tools that are going to be able to use those in a way that gets them ready for college and career. And memorizing dates about the Civil War just doesn't cut it anymore. So What does that look like at Collins? It looks like, trying to describe it again, it looks like a lot of student talk, a lot of student interaction, a lot of research, a lot of critical thinking, open-ended questions. Very little yes and no. A lot of what do you think about that? How did you get that answer? Can you show me? So math, for example, we are doing a lot of multiple modality learning. In doing multiplication, do skip counting, do and now the word is going to escape me. It's a grid so that they can take the problem apart and do bits of it. There's just a lot of different ways to get the same answer.
Okay, so that's interesting because talking to many people who have kids and they mention Common Core, it seems to me, and this is just within my own personal sphere, a lot of backlash against Common Core. And I don't know if it's simply an older generation that is very romantic with the way they went to school with. And I mean, it's like anything else, right? It's like older generation that doesn't want to do social media for business. I mean, it's kind of the same thing. So I don't know if it's a little bit of that or if there are actual issues with Common Core teaching. But the way you broke it down makes a lot of sense. If it gives a student different ways to solve a problem and allows them to figure it out on their own, then that's a much better learning experience than older styles of teaching.
Right. So just that's exactly right. But a missing piece is not only are you multiple ways of solving it, but you have to explain how you did that. So being able to critically think and to be able to put the pieces together and be able to express, I did it this way because I'm figuring it out in this way, and I took it apart this way. So it's not just about getting the answer. It's about really being able to explain and express how you did that. Think about STEM, right? Okay, science, technology, engineering, and math. That's STEM. And if you think about the science, a science project where you have to critically think about what's my scientific method going to look like? Which bubble gum holds its flavor longest? Or you can't just chew the gum and say this one. You have to have this methodical taste test. You've got to time it. You've got to do all of these pieces, and then you have to explain it. So we're putting that application to everything. Explain how you did it. Let's test it. Because that's where our future is, right? To be competitive in the world, we are going to have to be innovative. We're going to have to be able to explain it, and we're going to have to be able to sell it. So I can come up with the greatest invention, but if I can't tell you what it does and how it's going to make your life great, it's not going to do me any good.
So true.
So it's really about that critical piece of thinking it through, working it through, having all the pieces in place, and then being able to tell you about it and explain it so that you're going to want to be a part of it, and you're going to go, oh, okay, well, that was a great way of thinking about it.
I like how you put that.
Thank you.
No, but I mean, you're 100% right in that is the future where it really comes down to critical thinking.
Right.
It's not going to be, the same standard world economy that we've had the last 50 or even 100 years. I mean, it's completely changing and changing so fast on a daily basis.
Right. The other piece about Common Core that I just want to bring up is, yes, you're absolutely right that new is often uncomfortable for folks who are comfortable with the status quo. And in my generation, it was new math, and the parents were freaking out about new math, which was algebra, right? And because we didn't have that previously, unless you were a scientist, unless you were a mathematician, you didn't really have to know calculus or trigonometry or any of that. So the new math was hard for folks to help their kids with homework, and I think that's the same thing with Common Core. The multiple ways of thinking is, I don't know how to help my child with their homework because I haven't seen it done that way. So that's where I think there's going to be a question about getting the parents involved, and one of the things that we have is, being able to bring the parents in and teach them how to help their kids with homework. But the piece about Common Core is there needs to be an outcome project-based ending. So what we're really trying to do, and I'm not trying to beat a dead horse, but it's about the end result. What are you getting out of it in the end? So let's say we're going to build, in fourth grade, we're going to do missions because that's the curriculum. Not everybody's an artist. Maybe I want to do photography. Maybe I want to, go visit and take pictures. Maybe I want to interview somebody who is a Jesuit priest. Maybe I want to do, all of these different aspects. But if my end result is that I want to tell you about a particular mission, when it was, why it was, and where it was, I have all of these possibilities of expressing that. It doesn't just have to be, I went to Michael's and bought this kit and I put it together. It's really about how do you want to express what it is that you've learned from this curriculum.
I like that explanation. So I haven't heard Common Core explained like that, and it makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense, and I totally agree with you 100%. Now, you said you hold events at the school to teach parents how to help their students with homework.
Yes, that is correct.
So how do you teach the parents?
So,
and I think it's also a little funny and ironic that parents are going back to elementary school to learn.
So in a broader sense, we have monthly events at the school, sometimes more than one time a month. And we do family fun nights. We do educational nights. We do fundraisers. We do not for fundraising. So we try to get the parents involved as much as possible. But we do have a literacy night. We're going to bust out Common Core. We're going to bust out some writing. We're going to model we're not teaching the parents, but we're going to model for the parents what we do and how we do it. So if we had a math night so let me talk about science night. Actually, the high school has what's called We Science Club. And those high school kids come to the school and they bring 8 to 10 science projects, and then we have an event where all of the kids come at the night and with their parents at nighttime, and they do these science experiments. And they have a passport, and they go from station to station, and they watch the kids, make bubbles or make slime or talk about pressure. So they do or whirlpools in the bottles, and so it spurs the kids on to be creative, and it helps show the parents what a science project can possibly look like. So that's one aspect. A math night, for example, would be each grade level teacher sitting at the cafeteria table, and that they come over and the teachers do a mini lesson around this is how we would teach composite numbers, or this is how we would do one-to-one ratio addition and subtraction, or something along those lines. Just helping with the new terminology. It's the same math, it's just different. It's just a different approach and a different languages that we use, different words that we use.
Okay, so not probably, parents should get involved and see how it's being taught, and then they'll be able to understand it a lot better, and the goal for the overall outcome of the Common Core.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Now, what other events do you hold there that help parents and their students connect a bit more?
Wow. We do a ton of stuff. So I think one of your questions was about kindergarten and kind of breaking away that first day. We do a boohoo breakfast first thing. Even in August, we have an early back day. So we call it a roundup, and it's usually 2 weeks before school starts. The Dad's Club comes and does a barbecue, and we have the PTA parents selling spiritware, and I'm there. They look at their class lists. They look at the teacher's wish list, things that they want in the classroom: tissues, hand sanitizer, paper towels, and we just have a meet and greet, and we just walk the parents around, show them the school, and then we have a boohoo breakfast. So the first day of school, I lead the kids in rules assembly. And while that's going on, the PTA brings the new kindergarten parents to a little breakfast. and they each get a little box of tissues and just, helps them through that first day, and they can peek in the window and see their little ones. We have to give tissues to some of the little ones too because they're pretty sad. But after the first day, they're usually very excited to be at school.
That's a huge experience for them. Like first day of school, kinder, and even going from kinder to first grade. I mean, at every level, I think but it progresses and becomes much easier every single year. But that first year of kinder is just very scary.
Yeah. So it is very scary, and we try to make it as comfortable. And, we talk about peace and joy and kindness. And so just really, if someone is crying, you just give them a hug and you tell them it's going to be okay. And mommy will be here in a couple of hours, and you sit with them and you do the best. You treat them the way you would want your own children to be treated.
Now, kindergarten is not a full...
It is a full day.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, last year was the first year the district went full day kindergarten for the whole district.
Wow.
So 8:30
I remember
to
it was
2:20.
like usually split up between like a morning and then an afternoon.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. But again, as we progress, the kindergartners can use a tablet like you wouldn't believe. They don't need to take naps anymore. Well, most of them go home and take a little bit of a nap. But yeah, it's the day is, they're savvy. They're growing up pretty quick.
So that's very interesting because it makes me really wonder how, when those kindergartners that are not really taking as many naps because now they're a lot more mentally active because they're using tablets and everything else, how society is going to look down the road when they're in their 20s and 30s and even 40s.
Right. Well, I think I just recently read something about a petition to look into what screen time is doing to our young folks. Did I read something about they were asking Google and Apple to do some research on, what is it going to look like? How is it affecting brain growth and function for our little ones?
Yeah, there's been a lot of studies that have been done, but not extensive studies.
Right.
And that's one thing that they're looking. I know I did read one study where the more screen time you have, especially when it comes to social media, your dopamine levels skyrocket.
Right.
So people get addicted to social media because of that.
Right.
Cause and effect. But they're still studying that and a lot of the different effects of using tablets and computers. But I think the reality is it's just society. I mean, business everywhere around us is all online. I mean,
That's right.
It is what it is.
That's
and I think it's just a matter of learning that people can be addicted to social media.
Right.
And just like anything else, you got to have it in moderation.
Well, I'm quite a proponent to eliminate social media at my school. I talk about that very often. I do a monthly newsletter, and frequently I talk to parents about checking in with their child's accounts and making sure that they have some filters, that they are talking to them about who they're communicating with, how they're communicating. I talk to particularly my 5th and 6th graders often about we don't use cell phones at school. They can have them turned off in their backpacks. But we have telephones for emergencies. There's no need. And then you have your tablets. And the district has filters for the tablets as well. So they really cannot go onto social media. They can do some limited YouTube because there's a lot of good information that comes from that, TED Talks and that sort of thing. But we really do try to be cognizant of what the kids are using at school.
Yeah, because the effects of, the dopamine spikes that they've seen when people, and these are adults using social media, is very similar to other drugs, like actual
Absolutely.
drugs. And so if you have that kind of dopamine spike actively happening on a daily basis or hourly basis with children, they're going to be addicted to that right away. Now, part of it, you could also argue, it is a tool. It connects everyone. They are, in a way, being a lot more social online because now they're communicating with so many different people. But yeah, it's a whole moderate and a balance as someone if they're in fifth or sixth grade and growing up, because there are a lot of dangers out there. There's a lot of things they don't need to see, and it also has to be controlled. Just because you don't want them fully addicted and just being dependent on social media. I mean,
Right.
that's one thing that we see all the time. People so obsessed with how many likes they get,
Right.
and people will post a photo, and if they don't get enough likes, they delete it because they just feel as if it's a horrible photo because they didn't get
Enough likes.
enough
wow.
likes.
Ah,
Yeah, so
you know,
all that develops. So it's very interesting, and yeah, there has to be a balance.
right. Well, my hope, I'm an optimist, and so I feel like with every new thing, and social media is relatively new, and we're talking, what, 10, 12 years? And even
Yeah,
younger
if
than
that,
that
yeah.
for some of them, because they're constantly, Facebook is an old folks thing, because once the kids realized parents were on it, they didn't do it anymore, right? So then they go to the Snapchat, or they go to the Musically, or whatever it is they're using these days. But I think optimistically, I feel like because of the research, because of the way that we're progressing, then mechanisms will be built to protect us. Once we see that something is harmful, I think we tend to fix things that we see are broken. Seatbelts, for example, were non-existent, right? And
Yeah.
now you have to have a seatbelt, you have to have a car seat, you have to have a booster seat, you have to be 80 pounds. So, we fix things when we realize that they can be detrimental to society as a whole. And I think that is going to be the next wave for social media and for the use of screen time with kids. They're going to recognize, yeah, maybe we need to limit what they can see and what they can do, and how, you have to be 18 to vote. You have to be 21 to buy beer. We're going to have some mechanisms in place to eliminate younger and younger kids from having access to that addiction, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be
That's
interesting.
optimistic. I mean,
yeah, it'll
I
be
hope.
interesting to see how it evolves.
How it plays out.
Yeah,
Exactly.
in the next 5 to
exactly.
10 years. So, how involved is Collins within the community? Is there like volunteer programs that the students themselves can get involved in?
Yeah, so I kind of got off the rails with that whole social media thing, because I was talking a little bit about our Boohoo Breakfast and our events. We have, starting in, so once a month, we have a great PTA. They're incredibly involved. We start with a welcome back luau, and the parents come, we take photos, and they wear leis and grass skirts, and there's activities. Lots of volunteerism. A lot of the parents come out and really give their time and energy. I have a sign up at the beginning of the school year for a co-op kind of thing, so parents can sign up and say, I can come and walk the halls on a Thursday. I can be at yard duty. I can help you out in the multi-purpose room. As far as the community is concerned, we do fundraisers throughout. We've had Mod Pizza Day. We've had Tutti Frutti Smoothie Day. We've had Habit Burger Day. We're working with Sugar City right now to get some rocks, and we're going to do a painted rock river in our front, so that the kids can have some legacy, that they paint a rock and then they put it in the river. Buy stuff from Blue Sky. Bear Claw provides our, I do a parent principal breakfast during our award ceremony every month. So we have an award ceremony every month, and kids get certificates for being good citizens, if they've improved in their accelerated reader levels, if they have perfect attendance. We give out prizes, pencils, and Bear Claw provides the pastries, and the parents come out, and I'm there available to ask questions, and they can meet with other parents. I mentioned Pinole Valley High School kids come out, and I'm working with Mr. Kleidman. I think you said you had you said
Yeah, he was on the podcast.
He's already done a podcast. He's a trailblazer. So having the Pinole, the science club come out and do science activities. I have a young lady who's the math club president, and they want to come out and do math outreach. So they're going to come for a day and do math with the kids. We have volunteers for Dr. Seuss Night, which is coming up in March, and they come and they read with the kids, and that's coming from Pinole Middle. They want to come, the leadership is going to come and do reading with the kids all day. And then I mentioned something about Pinole Historical Society. So we do a writing contest, and then the mayor comes out and gives the kids certificates and takes pictures with them when they participate in the writing. What else do? We do a lot of stuff.
Do you have band programs?
Yes, we have band for 5th and 6th grade. Mr. Linhart is my band teacher, and he comes out and does that. And they've played a couple of times for they performed at the winter performance, and then he does recorders for all the 4th graders.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you mean recorders?
Like they're like flute-like things.
Okay.
Right? So,
Okay.
yeah, I purchased recorders for all the 4th graders, and they learn fingering and reading music and, simple hot cross buns music. It's kind of cute. It's cute. It's old school, but it's really good. And the kids play. I think we have someone playing a guitar. We have someone playing drums. And then there's the traditional, trumpet and flute and piccolo. And
So what's your typical day look like as a principal?
oh, my. That would depend on who, what, when, and where. So we start off, we have a warning bell. Kids line up. So we are in our seats ready to learn by 8:30. We say the pledge over the loudspeaker every morning, and we give the student council. So my 6th graders who are voted in come and do the announcements on the loudspeaker. And so they give a positive affirmation statement every morning. They say the pledge. They say anything that might be necessary about, don't forget to collect money for this, or don't forget that we have an event here, or so they'll make announcements, and then they end by saying peace, and we get busy with our day. It really depends on the grade level. Lower grades usually start with circle time and sharing, doing calendar work, talking about the day, what does it look like outside. Every class has an agenda, so the teacher will go over what the agenda is for the day, sort of, again, outcome. This is what we want to accomplish. Throughout the day, there can be library, drama, art, always reading, always math, lots of PE, lots of recess time. Of course, we have breakfast every morning, so that starts at 7:45 and goes till about the warning bell, 8:25. And then there's lunch. We have 2 recesses.
Now, what are you doing throughout this entire day?
What am I doing? I try very hard to be present. So I'm walking around. I'm in classrooms. I'm in the cafeteria. Recently, not as much this past couple of days because coming back, we've got deadlines to do. But for the most part, I'm in the cafeteria for all 3 lunches every day, just because that's my time to interact with the kids in a more social environment. When I go into the classrooms, I try to sneak in. We do what's called a pinky wave. So they see me, they pinky wave, I pinky wave back, and then they continue on with their work, and I just sit and watch. Just checking out. I'm just present on the yard at recesses. But then, there's certainly seat time for me as well, answering parent questions, concerns, phone calls, and then the paperwork.
It's always interesting to see every principal's own style of how they run a school. You have some principals that are very much out there, like with the students, with the parents. You see them walking around the campus and they're involved in everything. And then you have some principals that are completely behind the scene. You don't really see them as often out and about, but they're there working and basically managing the entire campus. So it's always interesting to see the different styles.
Right. Well, part of my joy is watching a kindergarten student do some work and do the math or do the drawings or participate and be a little citizen. That for me is, I can have the worst day and it's better than most people's good days, because it's just so joyful to walk into a classroom and see the physical light bulbs going off on top of their heads. It's really it's cool.
Now, do you have an assistant vice, or do you have no vice principal, no assistant principal?
No, I do not.
Okay.
No. but it's a good staff and they are very supportive. So if I'm at a principal's meeting or if I'm off campus, I have what's called a teacher in charge. And so if something were to go down, they can step up and support. You know, they can redirect a student, they can call a parent. But I don't have any issues. I mean, we have very, very few incidences that are anything more than just, you know, a kid being a kid. No fights, no, you know, really it's a very calm place. It's a good place.
And how do you decide on the curriculum to teach with the teachers? I know that every teacher also has their own style of teaching. So how do you combine their style with the curriculum you want to teach?
So that is debatable. The district and the district at large chooses a curriculum. So, you know, there's a certain number of minutes per week that is dedicated to that subject. And then based on that, we adopt a publisher's curriculum. So we have a specific reading language arts series. We have a specific math series. And so in that, what I like to describe is that curriculum is a roadmap. It is not a script. It is not necessarily page 1 on day 1, page 2, day 2, but it is a something to access that subject matter. And so then the teacher's style comes into play, their ability to look into other resources to supplement what it is that they're teaching, to bring in realia, to bring in, you know, pictures and things that accompany that curriculum. So again, hoping that the teachers are taking advantage of the resources available to them. They open it up, they see what, you know, chapter 1, lesson 1 is about X. Oh, I know I can go and get this, and I can get this, and I can put it together. And then they use, for example, the reading language arts. The story that they're reading at 4th grade or 5th grade or whatever grade it might be, it's an interesting story, but more importantly, what the outcome is supposed to be is teaching a child how to understand what the author's voice is. So does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
So we're really talking about not the story itself, because, you know, we can all read Charlotte's Web and cry at the end, but what do I really want to get out of reading that kind of a novel is comprehension, the language the author used, what the author's trying to portray in the spirit of, you know, all of those things are within the curriculum, and those are the things that we're trying to teach, not necessarily the story, but why the story was written or what the author's trying to portray.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, we don't necessarily have a lot of choice within the curriculum because we adopt it as a district, and so that is the one that we adopt. But we do have freedom in bringing in supplemental materials and bringing our own personalities into the teaching that we do. And that's what I want to see, because the kids, if you got a great personality and you're working with the kids, they're going to love that and they're going to get more out of you. If you're just reading from a book, it's Charlie Brown's teacher.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Okay, so what's the hardest part about being the principal, and what's the best part? And I think you kind of answered and touched on what the best part is, but what's been the most difficult challenge for you?
You know, even in looking at the questions beforehand and kind of trying to think about it, it's a really hard question, because there's heartbreak in what I do often. And I think the hardest part is not being able to fix things that are tragically broken. And that is, you know, I have children of my own, and I consider all of these kids my kids, and I want to make sure that they're fed, that they're loved, that they are, you know, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? I can't teach them if they're hungry, and I can't get to them if they're sad, if they're worried about their parent being ill, or if if mom and dad are arguing, those kinds of things. So I think the hardest part is really being able to separate myself sometimes from the things that I cannot change, and only working on the things that I can, the control piece. And I, sometimes I go home brokenhearted, but mostly I don't. Mostly I'm very happy and joyful. That's the hardest part.
And now your best part. And I think you touched on that.
Every day.
Yeah.
Every day is the best. I mean, it's just, kids are just so amazingly joyful and innocent, and even in a reprimanding, redirecting situation, and I look at their little faces, and in the end, I'm like, this doesn't mean that I don't love you any less. You just made a mistake, and let's get. And they're like, oh, phew. Like they feel, oh, okay, it's just a mistake, and I can do better tomorrow, and it's just joyful. It's joyful.
Now, your years as an educator, overall, what's been the biggest lesson you've learned?
We are all individuals. We are all different in some way, whether it's how I learn, how I express myself, where I came from. We are all individuals, and we needed to be treated as such, but we are all the same in that we all need the same things. We need someone to listen to us. We need someone to support us and help us, and yeah, I mean, that's a tough question. Yeah, we're all individuals, and you have to treat people individually, and know where they're coming from, and figure out what it is that they need in order to go to the next step. Yeah, I'm repeating myself.
Yeah, you, as an educator and in your position, you have to have high EQ, like just emotional intelligence, and I think it just comes down to being able to see everyone's own individual situation,
right.
And then being able to adapt what you do to benefit them the most.
Right. And it's interesting because we talk about educating the whole child, and if you think about a puzzle, if the puzzle is put together and it's complete, there's no missing pieces. But if I'm trying to teach a whole child, every child has a different piece of puzzle missing, right? And so I can't just expect to put this cookie cutter piece of puzzle into every child to make them whole. Every child comes with something that they need differently. That's what I'm talking about, the differences, right? Is one child, I mentioned it before, one child might be hungry. And if I'm mad at them because they're not paying attention, and, come on, pay attention what's going on, and they're thinking about whatever it is, the argument they had with their parents that morning, or the fact that they're hungry, or the fact that, this afternoon they don't know who's going to pick them up, then that's a different puzzle piece that I need to figure out. And so I have to be very cautious about how I'm presenting myself whenever it is I'm trying to solve the problem that they're bringing to me. And that's what I'm trying to impart about the individual. We are all individuals, and we all have different puzzle pieces that are missing that we want someone to help fill. And yet when our puzzles all put together, we're all the same, right? We're all humans, and we all have the same needs of love and food and compassion. And
well, you've got a tough job trying to figure out what pieces are missing.
a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Ask a lot of questions. What can I do for you? What's going on?
Well, I want to thank you for being on the podcast. It's been a good talk, very educational, learned a lot. And for people that are interested in learning more about Collins Elementary, what's the best way to do that?
Wow. Come to the school, call. The website is really not functioning right now. I'm trying to get someone to help work on that. We do have a wonderful PTA website. It's Mark Collins PTA, and my door is always open. The school is open from 8 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon, so just show up and come ask questions.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Great.
Great.
Well, again, Denise, thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you. Appreciate the time.
Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Thank you to our producer, Sam Lubman. Please subscribe, like, comment, and share the podcast. Remember, you can listen to the podcast on iTunes, Podbean, iHeartRadio, Google Play, SoundCloud, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. For more information on my business as a property manager and real estate team, go visit my website at markguzman.com. I really want to thank all of you for listening. It means the world to me, and I hope today's episode provides you value in your day-to-day life. I created this podcast to help showcase the many great people that live in this world and help share some knowledge that I've learned along the way in life. Again, thank you for listening. Check out our sponsors, and I'll catch you on the next episode.